Thank you, Mayor, Council members. As the City Manager mentioned, we have gone through what is now considered the first phase of the budget cuts for the current year. Now, when we were presenting the numbers to you, we had anticipated that on the expenditure side, that we would have $9.2 million in expenditure savings in the current year. Departments have actually identified $10.3 million in savings, so we've actually come up with additional savings from an expenditure side. Of course, there are two sides to any ledger, and we are experiencing continued decline in our revenue streams. I've broken this out into two categories. We have our discretionary revenues, which are made up of property tax, sales tax, real property transfer tax, which is coming in an additional shortfall of $2.1 million. This is on top of the shortfalls we had identified in the first quarter report. Also on the programmatic side, we are seeing continued decline in development revenues. There's some grant revenues and fee revenues that are also coming in short. One of the areas that we obviously have concern in is sales tax. When we came forward with the first quarter report, we had adjusted the sales tax numbers significantly and had what we considered a conservative projection of about 3.5% increase from the prior year, which at that time was considered the most likely increase. And at this time, based on the first quarter report, which reflects transactions approximately from July through September of the current fiscal year, when you compare that to the same period in the prior fiscal year, we've actually only grown 0.6%, and that's essentially a flat growth. And when you compare that to other agencies, we are doing better because we're not experiencing a decline, as you can see from this chart, but it is lower than we had projected, so we are going to have to make additional adjustments to our projected sales tax for the current year.
You might want to indicate, just because I think it'll be difficult for those watching this from a distance to read, that what you've indicated is that the cities of Imperial Beach, Coronado, and Carlsbad have had slight increases in sales tax. Chula Vista, minimal, and the rest of the cities showing in red are the declines in sales tax.
That's true. Yes, thank you. Now, the other category that we anticipate having an impact, although at this time really isn't based on any reports we have received from the assessor's office, it really is based on what we're seeing in the market and what, just based on conversation, is with the amount of homes being reassessed because of the drop in the market below the base year, which the tax was assessed on, we anticipate there will be some impacts to our property taxes. Now, the county assessor is getting about 100 requests a day. This is countywide. For reassessment requests, and it would take some time to adjust the tax roll for that. So some of the adjustments may occur into the next fiscal year, but we did want to provide a conservative projection. So we are adjusting our AV anticipation growth to 10% versus 14%. So we do anticipate at this time we will have an impact to our property tax revenues.
Let me just amplify for a minute. We knew that our assessed valuation was not going to keep pace with what we had anticipated. We received the word from the assessor last year that was occurring. The estimates were downgraded. What's become clear recently with the significant number of property owners that are asking for their properties to be revalued is that we're going to have significantly less than what we had anticipated, even at the reduced level. The problem that we're facing right now is we're not sure how low that's going to go. It just seems logical as people out in the community, particularly in eastern Chula Vista, are seeing foreclosed properties sell at significantly below what they were originally purchased for. And as they then turn around and get their property tax bill, recognizing that that the value that they have on their property tax bill when they bought their home 2 or 3 years ago is not the value that they have that it is today, they're appealing that value, and the values are dropping. Consequently, our revenues are dropping. Maria's estimate is that we should drop our current estimate of property tax by 4.2%. That may not be enough, but right now at this very preliminary stage, we feel that that's our prudent number.
One of the things that the assessor is also experiencing is people are submitting applications to get their homes reassessed when they're dropped below the market value that it had a year ago. And that doesn't really play into what the tax will be. It's really based on what the home was purchased at. So they're sorting these items out currently, but we anticipate in another week or so we should get some regional numbers in terms of adjustments to assessed value. One thing that Chula Vista has had that other cities haven't had, which is why we saw that 14% increase, was our commercial growth, which actually has helped the city offset some of the adjustments that have been occurring on the residential side. Now, all in all, in terms of discretionary revenues, we anticipate we would have to adjust our current year projections by about $2.1 million. We have been successful in refunding or restructuring the 2002 COPs as Council had approved. We are working on refunding the 2000 tabs, which we're currently working on. So we anticipate that we should have about $1.2 million in savings in the current year budget, and we anticipate that we'll have some workers' comp savings as well. So with that, we've been able to mitigate the majority of the impacts that we're having that we're anticipating based on these revised projections. Again, these are one-time savings, but as we go into the 2009 budget, you will see these numbers being adjusted and creating a gap in the M9 budget. Now, overall development revenues continue to drop. We are about $1.9 million short on the development side, and we do have some shortfalls scattered throughout the various categories. There are departmental revenues. We have received adjustments to these projections from the departments that would improve this picture slightly, but we're still reviewing those projections and anticipate that we will be able to reflect some of those adjustments in the third quarter report. And overall, what essentially we're seeing here is that we're still expending more than we're bringing in revenue, so we anticipate that we'll have, if these assumptions play out throughout the fiscal year, we essentially have a $3.5 million gap in the current year on top of what we had already mitigated from the major cuts. So what this does is it translates into an additional hit to the reserves if we continue on this pace. So what we have recommended is that there be a citywide administrative freeze on what we would consider a discretionary type spending through the end of the current fiscal year. Now, the reserves dropping is something that we obviously don't want to see, but in addition to that, we are starting to see the cash flow impacts, and there's a potential that we would hit the reserves and close the books in a deficit situation in the general fund, which we have never had that situation occur. Part of what's playing into this is the state has not impacted us in terms of takeaways, but they are delaying in paying us some gas tax monies, which does tie into reimbursing the general fund. So they are already impacting us in terms of their state budget situation. This is the situation.
Let me just